Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving right into Chapter 12, Approaches to Working with Young Children with Autism Spectrum Disorder. We're going to break down exactly how educators understand and support little ones with autism spectrum disorder, or ASD for short.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're covering 5 main sections. First, what is ASD? Second, characteristics and diagnosis. Third, the neurodiversity movement. Fourth, supportive learning environments. And finally, strategies for teaching. Let's get right to it.
Section 1. What is ASD?
So what exactly is autism spectrum disorder? Well, it's defined as a neurodevelopmental condition involving brain differences that affect behavior, memory, communication, and learning. Now, the absolutely crucial point here is that ASD isn't just about behavior. It's neurodevelopmental. That means it literally affects how the brain is wired to process information and communicate with the world. It's not just a kid acting out. It's a fundamental biological difference in how their brain develops.
What's really fascinating is how the diagnostic manual doctors use, you might know it as the DSM-5, breaks ASD down. You'll see it has 3 progressive levels of support. Level 1 is mild, Level 2 is moderate, and Level 3 is severe. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates why we call it a spectrum. Not everyone with autism experiences it the exact same way, right? A child at Level 1 might just have a hard time navigating complex social interactions, whereas a child at Level 3 might not use spoken language at all and require significant support every single day.
Now, you're probably wondering what actually causes this. Well, if we look at the causes of ASD, there isn't just one simple answer. Actually, scratch that. There's no single cause at all. Researchers now know it's a super complex mix. It usually involves multiple genetic predispositions that get triggered by environmental conditions. We're talking about environmental factors like premature birth, maternal stress, or maybe a lack of oxygen before or during birth. It's this very specific combination of genetics and environment working together that leads to ASD.
Moving right along to Section 2, characteristics and early diagnosis.
Because early intervention is the absolute key to helping these kids thrive, doctors use comprehensive screenings to spot signs in children as young as 2 years old. Yep, 2. Research shows professionals can accurately identify ASD in kids this young. And getting educational and behavioral support early on, it's an absolute game changer. It makes a massive difference in a child's learning and communication skills down the road.
One of the biggest areas where educators spot these early signs is in social play. If you've ever watched typical toddlers play, you know they usually learn to share, take turns, and imagine things together. But a child with ASD experiences this totally differently. Instead of progressing naturally to cooperative play with their peers, their play often features repetitive schemes and fixations. For example, instead of building an epic fort with a friend, they might get completely stuck on just lining up blocks by color over and over again.
Just take a look at the contrast here. On one hand, we have a child engaging in solitary play, focusing entirely on stacking blocks all alone. Contrast that with cooperative social play, where kids and teachers are holding a parachute together. While typically developing kids naturally move from playing alone to jumping into a fun group dynamic like that parachute game, a child with ASD might have no idea how to join in. They usually need targeted, supportive help from a teacher to make that leap into group play.
Another characteristic involves the psychological concept called theory of mind. Look at this definition. It's the ability to understand that other people have thoughts, feelings, and perspectives that are different from your own. Imagine for a second not being able to guess what your friend is feeling just by looking at their face, or not realizing that someone else doesn't know a secret that you know. That is a struggle with theory of mind, and it's a concept that is particularly challenging for kids with ASD. It makes navigating unwritten social rules incredibly confusing for them.
That brings us to Section 3, Understanding the Neurodiversity Movement.
The core question we have to ask here is, are we looking at a disability or simply a natural variation? You see, instead of looking at autism merely as a medical problem that needs to be fixed or cured, the neurodiversity movement asks us to consider it as a natural human variation in how brains are wired. Think about it like this. Just like people have different eye colors or different heights, people just have different kinds of brains.
As this quote from the text points out, the cultural model emphasizes the individual and celebrates disabilities as part of being human. We're impartially exploring this cultural model today because it powerfully advocates for accepting and supporting neurological differences. Now, to be fair, this perspective does spark some ongoing debates, especially about how best to support kids with severe needs who might require really intensive help.
But overall, it challenges educators to accept and celebrate children for exactly who they are, rather than trying to force them to fit into some standard mold.
Let's move on to Section 4, Designing Supportive Learning Environments. A good classroom is organized for everyone, right? A highly organized space is a great start. But imagine trying to learn in the middle of a blaring rock concert. For a child with ASD experiencing sensory overload, a regular classroom can feel exactly like that. It's just too much. That's why having a sensory tent is so brilliant. Providing a quiet, enclosed space, like this gray tent, gives a child a designated escape to recover from all that overstimulation. For many of these students, having a quiet escape isn't just nice, it's an absolute necessity.
Another amazing physical adaptation is the use of sensory materials. Think about a sensory basket utilizing natural objects, like coffee beans and small toy animals. By bringing in these natural, tactile objects, teachers create soothing, aesthetically pleasing spaces. This kind of setup invites the child to safely explore using their sense of touch without being visually or auditorily overwhelmed. It's calming, it's highly engaging, and it really helps focus their attention.
And finally, Section 5, Strategies for Teaching and Support.
One of the absolutely most powerful tools in a teacher's toolkit is a visual schedule, using pictures and symbols. Just like you probably rely on a daily planner app or your high school's block schedule to survive the day, these visual schedules provide crucial predictability. For kids who struggle with verbal communication and sudden changes, seeing a picture that clearly shows first circle time, then snack time, reduces their anxiety completely. It literally gives them a roadmap for their day so they know exactly what's coming.
Teachers also use some very specific cognitive and language steps. Step 1 is modeling, where the teacher shows competence by demonstrating exactly what to do. Step 2 is the first/then approach, which sequences tasks. And step 3 is give a choice, which builds the child's autonomy. So a teacher might clearly say, first we clean up, then we go outside. Do you want to clean up the red blocks or the blue blocks? This communicates the rules super clearly and empowers the kid without causing unnecessary frustration.
And here is a perfect example of naturalistic teaching in action, engaging a child in a sensory bin filled with colorful pom-poms and felt pieces. The teacher basically joins the child's own interest to embed the learning. Instead of forcing traditional, boring drills, they naturally practice social and verbal skills right there in the sensory bin. It's learning through play, which, let's be honest, is exactly how young children learn best.
As we wrap up this explainer on Chapter 12, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. How can you foster inclusion and neuroaffirming spaces in your own daily life? Think about how you can use this knowledge right now. Whether you're babysitting, volunteering, or just hanging out with friends, you literally have the power to make the world a more supportive, understanding place for everyone's unique brain. So, what's your first step going to be? Thanks for hanging out with me today, and keep learning.